Hello everyone, I'm here for my weekly check-in on Facebook to connect with you all. And I wanted to talk about something specific today. Just a growing thought for me, and I've seen it kind of pop up in different ways on Facebook. There's one person, a friend that I have on Facebook, that her family is going through a really difficult time, not even related to COVID-19. And she had written about how, she was trying to, trust, but she was still feeling anxious and worried. And it's a life and death kind of situation, so it's pretty normal to feel those things. And then today I saw pop up a hashtag faith over fear. And I think that there is a perception, at least for some evangelicals, that when we're going through difficult times and that our faith is shown by whether we feel fear or not. That if we have a strong faith, if we have a strong trust in God and His goodness and His love, then we aren't going to feel fear. We're not going to be anxious. And I absolutely don't believe that at all. And as well with that perception, then there's this perception that, well, if I do feel fear, if I feel anxious, then maybe I'm not as strong of a Christian. Maybe my faith isn't as strong, and maybe God's disappointed in me because I'm not strong enough and I'm still feeling fear. And I want to say to you, I absolutely do not believe that is true at all. I believe that fear and anxiety is part of being human. It's hardwired into our bodies. Our bodies have an automatic response when we feel threatened, and that response is outside of our conscious thought. We can't control that response. It's absolutely normal to feel anxiety, to feel scared when things are uncertain, when things are really hard, and we don't know how things are going to turn out. And I just absolutely do not believe that faith and fear are diametrically opposed to each other. Actually, I believe that faith is being absolutely terrified and trusting God in the midst of that. I think that's what faith is. And I'm going to share a story from my own life, which will sort of help you understand why I believe this very strongly. And I'm going to warn you, it's raw and emotional. And I've shared this with a few of you before, and I can't share it without starting to tear up and cry. So if you are not in a place for something raw and emotional, feel free to just pass this video and skip along. I just want to warn you that there's that with this. So I want to talk about when my first husband, Mike Fisher, when he died. And he died in our home, and it was very sudden. And he got the flu or something like that, got really sick. And he had asthma, he had health issues, and it progressed really quickly. And by the time, he had said, I think I need to go to the hospital, his lungs were already filling up with fluid. And he collapsed in our house, and I tried to do CPR, and it was just fluid coming out of his lungs. They were full of fluid, which is kind of eerie because from what I've read about COVID-19, that's what happens to people is their lungs fill up with fluid and then they can't breathe. So he'd collapsed. I'd called 911. The paramedics were on the way. And I was so scared. And I was begging and pleading with God to not let him die. And over again, just begging, please don't let him go. Please don't let him die. And then there came this moment. So the paramedics had already arrived. They're trying to resuscitate him. Not getting anywhere. And in the midst of my begging and pleading, there was this moment, and it was like being in the eye of the storm. And everything became still and quiet. And in that moment, I surrendered. I said, "You are God. And I place everything in your hands." And I let go. I let go of the grasping for this situation to turn out how I wanted it to. And I surrendered. And kind of wondered to myself, why do I always break up when I talk about this, when I say those words, "You are God, and I place everything in your hands"? Because I was letting go. I was letting go of Mike and accepting that this situation might not turn out how I want it to. And even so, I will trust you, God. I will trust that you are love. I will trust that you are good. I will trust that you will take care of me. It broke my heart to let go. I didn't want Mike to die, but I surrendered. And I believe that rather than God being disappointed with me in that moment, I think it touched his heart. If you think about, for those of you that have kids, when they do something that you know is really hard, they had to be really brave, and they do it, doesn't your heart just overflow? Because you're cheering for them. And I think that was God's response to me. I was terrified, but I chose to trust him. And no, things did not turn out how I wanted them to turn out. My husband died. But I believe that in surrender, I believe there is great power in surrender, in surrendering to God. That opened the door for God's influence to bring so much life and so much healing in my heart and my life. And I don't believe that when we die, that this is the end. I believe that the essence of who we are continues even after our bodies cease to live. And so I believe I will see Mike again. And my life has turned out in ways that I could never have imagined. And for the good. So much life, so much more peace, so much healing in my heart. And so that's why I don't believe that that being afraid means that your faith isn't strong, or that you're not a very good Christian. I don't believe that at all. And actually, I've been thinking about Jesus, and it's next weekend's going to be Easter, and I think about the night before Good Friday, the night before Jesus was crucified, and he is in the Garden of Gethsemane, and he is pleading with the Father, please take this cup from me. Jesus didn't want to go. He didn't want to be crucified. He was begging the Father, please find some other way. And I wonder whether Jesus was afraid. He certainly was feeling very intense emotions, and he certainly did not want to walk that path. And what did he do? He surrendered. He said, even so, your will, Father, your will, not mine, be done. And so I hope in sharing this that you're encouraged. We live in a lot of uncertainty. We don't know how everything's going to turn out. And that the response to that is anxiety and fear, and that's normal and that's okay. And actually, I would say that if you try and ignore that you're feeling afraid or anxious, because that's not what Christians are supposed to feel, that's bad for your mental health. I think we need to acknowledge the emotions and feelings that we're feeling. And it's when we acknowledge that and say, God, I am scared. I don't know how everything's going to turn out. That there, in that moment, then he's able to bring peace. And we can rest and trust and believe that however things turn out, God is with us and he loves us. And the things that are happening are not a punishment. It's just part of being in this world where there's sickness and disease and bad things happen. And in the midst of that, that is where God shows his love and his grace and his goodness. If we are open to that. So I hope that you're encouraged. And please, please do not feel that God is disappointed in you, or that you're not a strong enough Christian, or your faith isn't strong because you feel anxious and scared. It's rather in the midst of that when we can say, I will trust you. Or even to say, God, help me to trust you. Because I think he gives that as a gift. I don't think that what happened to me, that calm in the eye of the storm, I didn't conjure that up. I think that was a gift from God, that he gave me faith to surrender. I think that he did. And I think he does that for us because he's cheering for us. He really, really does love us. So be encouraged, and I will see you next week.